Hey, welcome to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and I am talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2, with some old friends of mine. We have Adam Lance Garcia, author of the Green Llama series. How you doing, Adam?
I am really just happy to be here. I can't wait to discuss the Book of Boba Fett.
Adam is also a novelist. He's written a series called The Green Llama. They're awesome. You should check them out on Amazon. And we have Megan O'Keefe. Megan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I just have a little rodent here I'm going to pick up and wipe my brow with in expectation of this great conversation about Boba Fett.
All right, so I want to get your rough impressions of the series. I have some questions for you about it. It's kind of unusual that we got these two episodes separated by a week. I personally thought it seemed like that was definitely like a part one, part two. Like the first episode kind of left me hanging. The second episode seemed to kind of like deliver on some of the things that were set up in chapter one. Megan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I kind of agree that I wish they had come out back to back because I personally wasn't really thrilled about the first episode. It didn't work for me personally, which hurt so much because I'm not a hater. I may be a critic, but I am a lifelong Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars so much. And so watching your Star Wars series and not like jive with it right off the bat was a disappointment. And part of it was I didn't feel like I learned anything new about Boba Fett, the character. I mean, sure, now we know how he got out of the Sarlaac and that's exciting, but I still don't know like why he wants to be a crime lord, to put it bluntly. But I do now, after episode 2, we've seen the Hutt, the twins. We understand there's a mayor at play who's kind of tricksy. We now understand a little bit more about Boba's time with the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and why they mean so much to him and where he has this newfound sense of honor, I suppose. But yeah, I think... Yeah, for me it's a little bit of a slow start, but again, I enjoyed episode 2 more, and I'm hopeful to see what comes next.
All right, well said. Adam, what do you got for us? What do you think?
For me, I was always iffy on Boba Fett. I've always found him to be like, yeah, he looks kind of badass, but I was never really interested in his post Return of the Jedi stories, whether that be Legends or canon. So I'm pleasantly surprised by the series. I think I kind of appreciate the slow burn of the narrative. I like that. I for all the criticism and the valid criticism people have had for the first episode, I've really enjoyed that slow burn. I like that we don't know why he's changed. We don't know necessarily what it is about him that has made him go in this direction. And I like that slow reveal. I think it's a nice change from the let us explain everything in a flashback in the first couple of minutes of an episode so everyone knows what's happening. There's a bit of more confidence in the way this story has been told than other franchises on Disney Plus at the moment.
So for me, I liked the first episode. I was into it, but it felt incomplete. Like I said, like I watched that first episode and I was like, oh, so there's one fight where Boba Fett gets his butt kicked and then he has to go back to, we don't yet know, like you said, Megan, we don't know why he wants to be a crime lord yet, but I'm an adult, I can be patient and learn these things. This episode, I thought, completed the other half of that story. We saw the consequences of that attack. We got to know who sent the attack. That initial attack in the first episode that's present day, didn't really set like a high set of stakes for me, So he's Boba Fett and he gets attacked. What's the big deal? These guys didn't seem that threatening. It didn't seem like this challenge to his presence as a crime lord. But then, in this episode, we see the Hutts. We see Black K, the Wookiee from the comics, and we're starting to get this like, oh, okay, it's building up. I keep thinking, what I keep going back to is the flashbacks and how much I love them. How it's just pure visual storytelling with almost no dialogue, inspired by Lawrence of Arabia, The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, and all these great influences, 3:10 to Yuma, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And I'm loving that, and I'm loving seeing the world building with the Tuskens and everything, and seeing Boba Fett just kind of how he's changing. In other words, this metamorphosis he's having, his character. And we'll talk about his vision in a little bit later. But that's what I'm really digging, and it makes me think these flashbacks maybe shouldn't be flashbacks. We should have just seen the story chronologically. Megan, what do you think? How's the structure working for you?
Yeah, the structure is not working great for me. Well, I mean, to your point that even the episodes feel like two halves of a whole, like, you talked about how I felt the same way where the fight in the present day didn't have a lot of stakes in the first episode. It wasn't until you met the Hutts you kind of get a payoff. Not only for the action and the tension and the stakes, but even for that litter joke that was started off as like a recurring bit in the first episode, and then it only gets a payoff in episode 2, which was an amazing payoff too. I love those Hutts. I have no idea why. I just find them very entertaining. But structurally, I mean, it was tough. Like, yeah, do we want it to be all flashbacks? Is there a reason for this sequence of the flashbacks? It's unclear. That's hitherto unclear to me. And I think, you know, as much as I do want to learn, it's weird tension with Boba Fett. As we were saying, when he had mystery, he was cool. And to your point, Adam, like, we have this backstory. How do we yes and make him cooler? I thought The Mandalorian Season 2 and Clone Wars did a good job at that. Kind of course-correcting what we knew of him, putting him with Aurra Sing, and then introducing him as a savior or a buddy for Din Djarin. I still want to... I think there's some mysteries, not only about his time between getting rescued and where he is in Mandalorian, but also mysteries about what his time before on Tatooine was. Like, what was his relationship with Jabba the Hutt? That seems to be an important missing piece as well.
I think that they haven't really found a decent balance on the present day and the flashback stuff. Because I think the flashback section was about 75% of this episode, and while I do find that very interesting, I don't think there's enough of like an equal footing and sort of enough of a commentary on like seeing the present day and the flashbacks and how those two work in concert. It's there, but it's not strong enough. And I think if my biggest criticism for the series is that like I want to see more of that forward momentum, and that's going to be achieved by a much tighter sense of moving from present to flashbacks back and forth a little bit more. So that's a big thing that for me, like, it's like, I'm like, this is interesting. Let's get to the point. Let's get to the point.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. For me, it's like I'm so much more interested in the flashbacks than I am the present day things. And I think those flashbacks are going to provide some much needed context. Not that I'm being patient. Like I said, I'm a grown up. I can wait and get my reveals, but I'm really just killing time till the flashbacks kick in the show. Like I really.
Kind of what I've always been banging on about. I still don't know like the emotional reason why Boba Fett wants to take over Mos Espa.
I think what I'm kind of seeing, especially with this episode, is that's going to be revealed, and it all ties together, and it's all related to how the Tuskens helped him, and where kind of he came up from, and his own past coming back to haunt him in that vision that we saw, which I freaking loved, by the way. I thought it was very well done and well visualized, and just terrific VFX.
Yeah, I'm presuming the same.
Incredible.
I'm just not a
Absolutely
patient adult
part.
like you, and I want to know now, Dottie. I want it now.
The impression that I'm getting right now is what Boba Fett was up to in the 20 years between trilogies, we can pretty much guess. He was taking bounty jobs. He never scored big. He never retired, but maybe he didn't want to retire. And what I think that vision is, I'm very interested to hear your take on it. You know, when he does the lizard up the nose and he makes COVID test face, and then he goes off on his vision quest, he sees this tree growing out of the Camino waves, which I thought meant his family tree, and the tree consumes him like the Sarlaac did. And for me, it was representing the path of his father, of Jango Fett, who met that end and died in front of him. So for years, maybe because he's a copy of Jango Fett, he thought that's what he had to do. He wanted to carry on his father's legacy. And now maybe he's questioning that, which is what I think we're going to get to with why does he want to be a crime lord. It is tough, though, because we know this character. We think we know this character, but we really don't. Now, like you said, Megan, we're asking ourselves, why is he doing this? Does he want revenge on somebody? Why is he a crime lord now? It's a slow burn, but I think it's going to pay off.
And even his whole, like, every time we see him in the crime lord mode, he doesn't want to do crime. Like, he wants to be, like, the nicest crime ever,
Yeah.
and it's like, why aren't... Like, if that's the story you want to tell, like, you have Cobb Vanth over there, who had the armor to boot. And I'm hoping to see that guy this season, too. I really want to see Oliphant back on Tatooine.
If you can distill from the second episode something you just loved about this. Adam, what do you think? Give me what you loved. What stood out?
What I loved is I do like that we're seeing the Tusken Raiders in a new light. I think that's the thing that I've really enjoyed the most, is seeing... understanding their culture, has been a nice. They took this, like, there are always these other characters in the distance that were used as savages. They humanize them, and to that yes anding, it sort of retcons Anakin to be even worse an Attack of the Clones, because now we know, like, these were civilized people. Like, Anakin was really a monster.
Lucas was obviously influenced by Westerns, especially John Ford Westerns. And later in John Ford's career, he became very much an advocate of Native American rights, movies like The Searchers. But earlier on Stagecoach, Native Americans were always just the other. They were the savages, like you said. And that's sort of how the Tusken Raiders are portrayed. This, like, unknowable people, they're kept at arm's length.
Yeah, before I go into my part, what I found really striking when I watched this episode today was, obviously Tamora Morrison is a Maori actor of Maori descent, which is indigenous, and I think it's really interesting to have the lead of a Star Wars show who is indigenous actually commit to the storyline about the reclamation of indigenous people. I do worry that someone is firing up a Luke Skywalker as a colonizer pitch for some editor somewhere for the hot take machine. But anyway, going back, my favorite parts, besides the speeder school and Max Rebo, and I do love Jennifer Beals, and I want to know more about that really glossy, we haven't seen anything like that on Tatooine ever. I want to talk about actually an Easter egg, the Fixer and Cammy thing in that little, like, wayside bar, because I thought that was an Easter egg done right.
Yes.
Because their scene has nothing to do with their backstory in the Star Wars universe. They have an interaction where they are established as everyday people who don't like what's going on, but they don't really know how to fight back, and they don't have the power to fight back. And that's their role in the scene. That's also kind of their role within the whole Star Wars universe, where they're just Luke's friends at the Tosche station. They weren't involved in rebellion, and we're seeing how ordinary people are still stuck there, still dealing with everyday problems, are, may seem mundane compared to the light versus the dark side of the Force. But yeah, I thought it was, if you know, but if you don't know, it's totally fine. The scene still totally works.
Also, that in Black Chrysanthemum, like, that was another really great Easter egg. It's like, it doesn't matter that if you've read the comics. If you haven't, he looks like a badass Wookiee. That's all you need to know. It's the kind of Easter eggs fan service that I like. It doesn't matter, as long as it works in the story, it doesn't matter who it is.
For me, it was the thing that stood out for me in this episode was the whole train sequence. I thought it was, I like the train sequence in Solo, but I thought this was miles ahead. And this could be because I'm such a big fan of Westerns, but I just thought the staging of it, the effects, like, I was pulled into it in a way that, like, I think the last Star Wars action scene that really got me like that, like just pure action scene, would have been maybe the dogfight in Rogue One, or... No, I even liked it more than the speeders in Last Jedi. I thought it was riveting.
I like the fact that we're seeing a different side to an established character. One of my biggest issues with The Mandalorian, which I enjoy generally, it's fun, is that, I say as I wear a Baby Yoda shirt, is the fact that a lot of the stuff in The Mandalorian is basically things that we've seen before, but with a new paint job. Din Djarin was basically just... Boba Fett with a new paint job. We had IG 11, which is IG 88. We had a few other little aspects of it, like you've seen this before, but it's just with a new paint job. It didn't really, at least initially, move the galaxy or the characters forward in a way that I kind of want or need in a Star Wars. What I'm enjoying about this take on Boba Fett, like, even though we don't know necessarily where and why, what he's doing, I like that it's challenging my expectations. I like that it's saying to me, like, hey, this character isn't exactly who you thought he was. There's more to him than you expected. It's not the same, oh, he was a clone. It's, hey, there's some hidden depth to him. There's a complex nature to him. And to the we don't know all this stuff. Well, we should know it from the beginning. I think that's part of the fun of this, the way they're structuring the show. It really feels like a book. You don't know everything right from the beginning. You're learning the stuff with the flashback working in concordance with the present day narrative. And I really like that discovery. I like that I don't know. I like that I'm wondering what's going to happen next. It feels and it's not perfect. I won't want to say it's perfect, but like the Book of Boba Fett at least has what I really want from the Star Wars in a lot of ways, which is challenging my expectations of what the story is and where it's going.
Well, I don't think, if I'm going to get crazy and lay out a couple predictions, I don't think he has any interest in being a crime lord. I think, if anything, because he's only so far shown interest in Tatooine. He's not building up an infrastructure of spies. He doesn't want to torture people. He wants to rule with respect, as he says in the first episode. And that's exactly how he rose up through the ranks of the Tuskens, by earning their respect, not by beating their asses and enslaving them or something. I think what he's wanting to do is to just free the Sand People at this point. I think that's his main thing, is to just become ruler of Tatooine, not expand his empire, and just to make good on how those people saved him. He's going to turn around and try to save them.
Sounds like you're describing Dune. And I've heard the criticism, or sort of wink and nod, are we just seeing Star Wars' version of Dune? And that'd be really funny if he's just trying to free Tatooine, so he could give the Tuskens their due. He's the Muad'Dib, or however you pronounce that. Exactly.
And you know what? In this episode, he does stop the spice from flowing to gain leverage.
Yeah.
On the Pikes, so you might have something there. Well, that's one thing I was thinking about regarding Star Wars earlier. We're working on this other video about the Mandalorian and all the different influences it pulls in from different things, which of course just ends up being a video about Star Wars, because what makes Star Wars is it's familiar and new, and you're taking all these different movie genres, and it's like every movie you've ever seen on screen at the same time. Then I look at Boba Fett and the Mandalorian and other things like that, and it seems like the referencing is now stuck in a feedback loop. Star Wars was influenced by Dune, and so, of course, these new things have to be influenced by Dune. We have to have a sandworm in the Mandalorian. We have to have Boba Fett being, like Paul Atreides. Instead of going, hey, you know what genre is great? Fill in the blank X. We've never seen a Star Wars fill in the blank X, like, for instance, a crime story. And if this does end up being more Dune than Godfather, I'll be really disappointed.
No, I think I kind of agree with Ryan, where I do hope that, I agree with you, Ryan. I thought I was going to disagree with you all the way. We're on the same page, buddy. I think maybe one of the reasons why I've been down on Boba Fett so far is that it does have so many of the same visual elements of The Mandalorian, where you have this, taciturn guy in a Mandalorian armor, doing the Star Wars thing, being on Tatooine, because a lot of the first season of Mandalorian, we went to Tatooine, we were on Desert World. I think also, to Ryan's point, I think what's cool about Disney Plus, and Marvel has taken full advantage of this, is that there's the opportunity to play in the sandbox of Star Wars for Marvel and try to apply it to a different genre through TV. And we've seen that with, the Marvel shows. They've tried the sitcom stuff. They've tried, a timey-wimey thing, like a Doctor Who, their version of it, basically. And Hawkeye was there. They're Die Hard. And I'm curious. Again, I'm rooting for this show. I'm not 100% in, but I kind of am curious to see if it will continue to expand week by week, its scope and its depth. Because I think my big issue with the first episode was I didn't feel a lot of scope or depth, but I did in episode 2. Whether that was the introduction of the Hutts, the mayor, Boba Fett's scooter school, which I want to sign up for, the Pikes being a more overt, reference. So if every episode after this continues to expand the horizon and show how unwieldy it is to control an empire, that would be cool.
I think that even though you can argue that Marvel has tried to do their sitcoms and their diehards, and this is The Mandalorian's a Western and this is a crime show, I do think that both Marvel and Star Wars have sort of suffered from half. Not really fully committing to those. Star Wars is trying to do a crime show or a Western, and it can't escape the certain fan expectations of what a Star Wars is, that it has to look a certain way, that it has to be a certain way, that it has to, I think that Favreau, for as great as he is, as great as he's been doing a job of building out the Disney Plus, TV series, he is still kind of a toy box director. He's bringing out all his toys. He's not really he's not willing to break them. He's not willing to push him forward just yet. And I think that the Marvel and the DC, to make its point, the Marvel and DC, the Marvel and Star Wars are sort of like two sides of the same coin, where they're trying new things, but they're not necessarily breaking free as much as they could.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the sandbox. I think my biggest turn off maybe in the first episodes. I felt like I was watching some kid I knew growing up take out all his Kenner collectible toys and just like play with them and tell me exactly why things happen a certain way without me without giving any emotional reason for it, because it's cool. Like, oh, that's gonna come out of the Sarlaac pit like this, and I'm gonna take out Max Rebo, even though he probably exploded. He's back, guys. He's back, and here's my Twi'lek girl. I'll give her a new name and a new backstory. And I just was like, okay, I feel like I'm watching action figure diorama brought to life.
But is it actually now in the video? I say it's Max Rebo. It's not in the credits. I haven't seen any official confirmation. It could be Zach Rebo. We don't know. This could be anyone from the Rebo family. It could have been that he and his cousin Max or brother Max had a deal, had a band together, and it went wrong and they split up. And he just happened to take the gig at Jabba's palace, and his brother was like, "Hey, don't do that. It's a risky gig, I'm telling you." It's just like the clerk's conversation about working on the Death Star.
I would watch this show so much.
So would I. And I do want, but what I am curious about, this is not what I was going to talk about, is that Figrin Dan from the modal notes? Because if it is, that means the Cantina band is the one that had the big split up. That's really, if I want to see a behind the music Star Wars, I want to know how he got separated from his Bith brethren, and now he's playing in Mos Espa. Not even in the same city. He got out.
I need all this. I desperately need all this. So much.
But this is why we need to switch genres. You know what I mean? Like, you need a hard genre right turn or left turn, right turn into something else, right?
Like a Dewey Cox walk hard up Max Rebo band.
Yes! A biopic parody like Dewey Cox about Max Rebo that also has full frontal nudity. Who doesn't want to see that?
Well, alien nudity.
Yeah. The scary thing is...
You ever get mid-sentence into a joke and you're like, don't finish that joke, but you still do, and next thing you know, you're picturing Max Rebo naked? That's where I'm at
trust
right
me,
now.
I have my joke is basically like, it wouldn't be called Behind the Music, it would be called Behind the Jizz. So, there you go.
Because the music they play in the Cantina band is called jizz, like jazz, and slang was different in the 70s, kids. That's all I could say about that. All right, well, thank you both for joining me. Adam, tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Lance Garcia. And if they like what I have to say about stories, you can find my books under Adam Lance Garcia on Amazon, your favorite local bookseller. Or you can listen to my podcast, The Green Llama, which is a radio drama set in the 1940s about the world's first Buddhist superhero. It's a licensed audio drama. You can find it on any of your favorite podcast apps like Apple Podcast or Spotify.
All right, Megan, thanks for joining me. Where can the people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at MegsOK. That's spelled MEGSOKAY. And yes, it's a play on my name. And I work at Decider.com. I'm deputy editor there, and I write about all things TV from Star Wars and Marvel to prestige stuff.
So let us know what you thought about this episode of Boba Fett down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.